Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, today we're diving into a high-stakes 1920s true crime story that honestly, it feels like it was ripped straight out of a Hollywood screenplay. We're going to deconstruct the ultimate historical heist, a literal masterclass in human psychology and manipulation. You'll definitely want to grab a notebook for this one because the way this was pulled off is just mind-blowing.
Right off the bat, just listen to this. Real quote. This wasn't said by some gullible mark on the street, no. This was said by a United States Secret Service agent about our mastermind. Count, you're the smoothest con man that ever lived. It perfectly sets the stage for the absolute caliber of criminal we're dealing with today.
Section 1, The Impossible Parisian Heist. Section 2, Meet Count Victor Lustig.
So this whole explainer really hinges on one staggering question. How exactly did one man manage to sell Paris's most famous, most beloved landmark without actually owning a single bolt of it? Well, our protagonist here, Victor Lustig, he wasn't your average street hustler. He was an aristocrat among charlatans with just an unbelievable resume. Born in the Czech Republic, he used at least 24 known aliases. The guy was fluent in 5 different languages. He had nearly 50 arrests in the U.S. alone, once hid $32,000 in counterfeit cash in a Times Square subway locker, and, this is my favorite part, he actually managed to swindle the notorious gangster Al Capone. I mean, this rap sheet proves we're dealing with an absolute master of deception.
And the ultimate prize in the heist we're looking at today? 250,000 francs. When you adjust that for a century of inflation, we're talking about the equivalent of roughly $1 million today. So how on earth did he get his hands on it?
Section 3, Setting the Trap.
You know, every great con starts with a little seed of truth, right? And Lustig found his in a totally mundane 1925 newspaper report about the Eiffel Tower's incredibly expensive upkeep. That boring little financial report sparked a wildly audacious idea. But to understand why his trap actually worked, we have to look at the historical context. Back in 1925 Paris, the Eiffel Tower wasn't the beloved romantic icon we know today. It was built for the 1889 World Fair, and get this, it was never actually meant to be permanent. By 1925, it was 38 years old, it was rusting, and it was a massive money pit to maintain. A group of artists and architects literally called it a hateful column of bolted sheet metal. So, a secret government plan to just quietly tear it down? That wasn't just believable, it was exactly what a lot of Parisians actually wanted.
Think about it. If you tear down the Eiffel Tower, what are you actually left with? 10,000 tons of scrap metal. To the 6 scrap metal dealers that Lustig invited to his little trap, that number represented a literal gold mine. We are talking about a career-making amount of iron.
Let's watch how rapidly this whole heist unfolds. Lustig reads the article, and within days, literally days, he hires a forger to print up this incredibly official-looking government stationery. It had the actual seal of the Ministry of Posts and Telegraphs, which was the real agency in charge of the tower. Then, he books a room at the upscale Hotel de Crillon, one of the fanciest, most prestigious hotels in Paris, immediately establishing this immense authority. Posing as a deputy director general, he holds a secret meeting with those 6 scrap dealers, completely binding them to silence by claiming a public teardown would cause massive political outrage. Finally, he takes them on an actual physical inspection tour of the tower.
Section 4, The Bribe That Built Trust.
Now, during that inspection tour, Lustig wasn't really checking the iron, right? He was checking the marks. He was carefully observing their body language and behavior, and he found a pretty stark contrast. On one side, you have André Poisson, blindingly ambitious, insecure, new to the Parisian business scene, and just absolutely desperate for elite status. He was, frankly, the perfect target. But on the other side, Madame Poisson. She was a total skeptic with incredibly sharp intuition. She thought the entire setup felt off, and her suspicions actually almost unraveled Lustig's entire operation right at the finish line.
She kept asking this exact question. Why is everything being done so quickly and so secretly? Who is this clerk really? It creates this incredible dramatic tension in the story. I mean, how does a con man possibly escape this corner when the victim's wife is completely onto him? If he pushes just a little too hard, she's definitely calling the cops. And this is where Lustig's absolute genius comes in. He used what we can call the rationalization bribe. Lustig held a private meeting with Poisson and basically confessed that, as a government official, he wasn't paid very well. He hinted super heavily that he needed a bribe to guarantee Poisson the contract. Now, this sounds incredibly counterintuitive, but it perversely proved to the skeptical wife that Lustig was a quote-unquote real French official. Because in 1920s Paris,
Everyone just assumed government officials were corrupt. So by asking for a 70,000 franc bribe, Lustig gave them a reason for the secrecy that made perfect sense in their worldview. It literally eliminated all of their suspicion in one brilliant move.
Section 5. The psychology of persuasion. Let's take a quick step back from the narrative here because the exact same psychological triggers Lustig used to basically hack Poisson's mind, they're widely used in modern marketing and sales today. These tactics ethically drive our everyday interactions, but Lustig absolutely weaponized them to create blind trust. First up, he established authority. He didn't meet in some shady dark alley. He used forged government seals and the luxury Hotel de Crillon. Second, he created affinity. People naturally trust people who are like them, right? So he dressed impeccably and acted just like the wealthy businessmen he was targeting. Third, reciprocity. Lustig actually took Poisson on a sudden, urgent trip to Bordeaux, treating him as an equal colleague. Psychologically, that obligated Poisson to return the favor, which he ultimately did through the bribe.
The playbook continues by targeting Poisson's very specific psychological gaps. Lustig used flattery, telling the dealers they were specifically chosen for their honest reputations. He solved a real problem. Now, sure, Poisson wanted money, but his actual problem was a lack of social standing. Lustig offered him a seat at the elite Parisian table. He adopted their worldview, completely exploiting the fact that everyone already hated the tower and already assumed bureaucrats were corrupt. And finally, he conveyed status by swearing Poisson into this high-level state secret, making him feel incredibly important.
Lustig was so insanely good at this that he literally wrote the book on it. These are Lustig's famous 10 Commandments. And if you look closely, do you notice the theme here? Almost all of these rules are about listening, mirroring, and totally suppressing your own ego. Wait for political opinions, then agree. Never boast. Be a patient listener. Lustig knew that persuasion wasn't about talking at all. It was about letting the target talk until they revealed their deepest insecurities, and then simply mirroring those exact desires right back to them.
Section 6. The smoothest con man. So, with a massive check for 250,000 francs and a hefty cash bribe in hand, what actually happens next? Well, it's the ultimate twist. Lustig hops a train to Vienna, fully expecting the police to be hot on his trail the second that check is cashed, and Poisson goes to the tower to claim his iron. But days go by, then weeks, and nothing. Crickets. André Poisson was so profoundly embarrassed by his own gullibility and so absolutely terrified of the social ruin of being outed as a fool that he hushed up the crime entirely. He just absorbed the massive financial loss just to save face. The victim's own shame literally became the con man's ultimate getaway vehicle.
But wait, Lustig wasn't done. Finding absolutely no mention of his incredible scam anywhere in the French newspapers, Lustig realized Poisson never went to the cops. So what did he do? He brazenly returned to Paris, booked the exact same hotel, printed the exact same stationery, and actually tried to sell the Eiffel Tower a second time to a brand new batch of dealers. I mean, the absolute nerve of this guy. Luckily, the second time around, his mark got suspicious and actually called the police. Lustig was forced to flee to America before he could be caught, but honestly, it just cemented his legend forever.
Which brings us to a question I really want you to think about. We all like to think we're smarter than André Poisson. But remember, Lustig didn't hack his intellect. He hacked his emotions. Those same principles of affinity, authority, and reciprocity, they're being used on us every single day, online, in stores, and in negotiations. So I'll leave you with this. If a master of persuasion perfectly mirrored your worldview and targeted your absolute deepest insecurities, would you buy the Eiffel Tower today? Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and I'll see you next time.